So here's the 1.4 example 6 notes. So here it says you have made a rectangular quilt that is 5 feet by 4 feet. You want to use the remaining 10 square feet of fabric to add a decorative border of uniform width to the quilt. What should the width of the quilt's border be? So we look here at our pictures they have given us. We have a quilt that is 4 by 5. Now the dashed line indicates basically what the border will be. And when it told us to have uniform width, that just meant that we're going to add the same amount to the width and to the length for our quilt. So what we're going to do here is create an equation so we can solve. So we have the area of the border, which is in the dashed line, right? And in order to figure out this here, we're going to set it equal to basically the total area. Well, the total area is the area of our quilt and of the border. And then what we're going to do is actually subtract this from just the area of the quilt. So we did area of quilt minus area, or an area of border minus the area of the quilt. That should give us area of the border. Okay. Now let's look at the picture first and see what it'll help us figure out. Well, we know the quilt's 5 by 4. So we need to get area. We know if we do 5 times 4, that'll give us 20. Now, if we also look at the picture, it gives us the length and the width of the quilt and border. So remember, to find area, it's length times width. So we're going to take our 4 plus 2x and multiply it by 5 plus 2x. Now we got to figure out the area of the border. Well, they actually told this to us in the little paragraph. So it says you want to use the remaining 10 square feet of fabric to add a decorative border. So basically our border is 10 square feet. So now what we have to do is solve for x. To do that, first we need to FOIL our 2 sets of parentheses. So when we do that, we have 4 times 5, that gives us 20. Then we do 4 times 2x, that gives us 8x. And then we do 5 times 2x, that gives us 10x. We can combine them to get 18x. From here, we do 2x times 2x, and that gives us a 4x squared. And then we still have minus 20 at the end. Now, if you notice here, we have 20 and a minus 20. Well, that means we can, because they are like terms, we can cancel them out. So now we're left with 10 equals 4x squared plus 18x. Now remember, whenever we're solving quadratic equations, we always have to set our equation equal to 0. So now what we're going to do is move the 10 over. So we're going to subtract from both sides. So we get 0 equals 4x squared plus 18x and then minus 10. Now, as we've done before factoring, we want to figure out if the 4x squared plus 18x minus 10, if those 3 terms have anything in common. Well, if we look, they should have a 2 in common. So what we're going to do is factor out a 2. This kind of just makes it a little bit easier to factor as well. So we have 2 times 2x squared plus 9x minus 5. From here, we're going to use that guess and check method to factor because we do have a value other than 1. So now what I have to figure out is what are the factors of 2? Well, that's easy, 1 and 2. Same thing for 5. We got to figure out the factors. Well, that's 1 and 5. So because we only have 1 pair for each, we have to use those pairs. So we have 2 times. Now we have to use a 1x And then here, we're going to use a 2x. Now, this is where guess and checking comes in handy, because we don't know if we're going to have 1 and 5 or 5 and 1. Well, let's see if we put 5 and 1, so how I just put it, if that works. Okay, so now remember we multiply the outer, so the outer ones, right? So we do 1x times 1. There we go. We should get x. And then we do 10 times 2x. That should give us a 10x. Well, if we do some adding or subtracting with our 10x and x, it should give us the middle number as 9x. So we have 0 equals 2 times x. Now in this case, we are going to have, looks like a positive here, because we have to have a positive 10x, and a negative x, so that's going to go in our other spot. So we have x plus 5, and then 2x minus 1. Now, just like we've done before, we're going to set each of our factors equal to 0. Know that we're not going to set 2 equal to 0, because that would make sense. So we're going to do x minus 5 equal to 0 and 2x minus 1 equal to 0. And then 2x minus 1. So we subtract 5, so we get x equals negative 5 on our first one. And then if we do the same thing on our other side, we get 2x equals 1. And we're not done here because we got to get x all by itself, so we get x equals 1/2. Now remember, we're trying to solve for x, so uniform width. It would make sense to have a negative width, so x equals negative 5 does not work. So our answer is going to be x equals 1/2, and notice that we will have to have our units, so that's going to be feet. So our final answer is going to be x equals 1/2 feet, or if you rather put this in inches, it'll be 0.6 inches. Or sorry, it'll be 6 inches. If you have any further questions, make sure you come in before or after school.